Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you can join us this evening to talk about redefining public safety and interrupting violence in our city. We have with us here Dr. Debra Mason. She has a bachelor's and master's degree in sociology. Her doctorate is in social science with a focus on prevention science. Dr. Mason's research identified the relationship between adverse childhood experiences and recidivism, coining the term trauma-induced recidivism. Dr. Mason also teaches at Wilmington University. Before coming to the city of Wilmington, she was the Deputy Executive Director of the Hope Commission. She also spent more than 10 years with the Delaware Department of Correction as a probation and parole officer and as an administrator. She has worked with other reentry programs and at Howard R. Young Correctional Institute as a drug and alcohol counselor. So welcome, Dr. Mason. We're so glad you can spend this evening with us.
Hello, everyone. I am definitely super excited to be here to talk about this new initiative. I truly believe that we are headed in the right direction. And the city of Wilmington is definitely doing all that it can to make this initiative successful. So last year, just to give y'all some background, last year, the city of Wilmington contracted with an organization called Collective-Based Public Safety. We call them the Collective. And what they do is they go around and they train individuals how to, address community violence across the board, in the sense that they, help them get in contact with different instructors, different trainers. The individuals help different organizations with TTA, basically teaching them how to collect data and basically be able to identify issues and why they may need more funding. So the Collective works with an organization in Newark, New Jersey called the Newark Street Team. And they have a very big program that is really focused on community violence overall. They work in the hospitals, they work with schools, they do so many different things in the city of Newark. And what they found was that this program actually helped reduce violence by up to 60%. So what we decided to do was to basically take that program and mirror it in the city of Wilmington. And with the support of City Council and Mayor Przicki, this program was brought to the city of Wilmington, and we work directly with two individuals from the Collective who have basically helped steer this car down the road, and we have been very successful. So in the landscape analysis that the organization came in last year and did, they spoke to many organizations. And throughout that, what they found was there were a few organizations that really stood out from the rest, and they were doing excellent work in the city of Wilmington. So what they suggested is that we reach out to those organizations and ask them if they'll be a part of this initiative, get them trained to address violence at a community-based level, and go from there. And we have done just that. We are currently working with YAP, which is a youth advocate program, and they are a reentry program for young adults. And we are also working with the Center for Structural Equity. This program is ran by Daryl Chambers, commonly known as Woofy, and he works with a broad range of individuals, school-age kids, adults. He works with everyone. And we also are working with Network Connect. So those three organizations were identified in the landscape analysis as individuals that we should basically pull together the resources, get them trained, and implement what we call boots on the ground. So what we have done is we have identified individuals in each of those organizations, and we went through training in March. We did, I think it was like a 3-day training, and it's called PCITI, public. I don't want to lie to y'all. I can't even remember what the PCITI stands for. But basically what it is it's a gentleman that is from Los Angeles, and he teaches individuals basically how to be public safety professionals and how to intervene in violence in the city so that it don't escalate. And the one thing I always say, and I have always said, is that a lot of times, I used to be a probation officer for 10 years. And what I always noticed is that a lot of times the individual that was sitting in the chair across from me that was now identified as an offender, a convicted criminal, was once a victim. So I always say the victims likely become perpetrators. So if we can intervene in that little space between them being victimized and then re-victimizing somebody else, that's what's really important. So we are more so like a violence interrupter. And we are also working with WCAC. They will be facilitating what we have identified as a public safety roundtable. Newark already, they do this. I think they do them every 2 weeks. We'll probably do ours maybe once a month. But this is where we're going to pull different individuals from the community. We are focused on 2 areas in the community. We are focused on Prices Run and East Side. And the reasons we're focused on those 2 areas is because those were identified as the areas that had the highest crime rates. So we will have public safety roundtables. We'll be inviting the police. We are now, I don't know if a lot of individuals know about the new public safety, the new community policing that Chief Campos has brought to the city of Wilmington. It's amazing. So rather than have different officers going throughout the whole city, he has identified certain officers that will work in specific areas of the city, which is amazing. So we will be working with the individual officers that are in Prices Run in East Side. They will be at the roundtables. We will have city officials at the roundtables. We'll have community members at the roundtables to basically just talk to us about different issues that's going on in the city and how we can resolve them. And the interventionists will also be at the roundtable. And the interventionists will be tasked with going out to the community, talking to people, finding out what's going on, finding out, what issues are happening in the city, who the shooters are, why they're shooters, if there's issues in the home, if there's domestic violence issues that has escalated. I'm sure you know that earlier this year we had a stabbing that resulted, I believe it resulted in a death, and it was a result of a domestic violence incident. So, it's possible if we could have had somebody intervene maybe 3 steps before that, the person may still be with us. So that's one of our biggest goals, is to find out what's going on in the city and how we can help those individuals before it escalates to the point of no return. And I always tell people we cannot arrest our way out of the situation. The one good thing I can say is that Wilmington, the crime in Wilmington is actually down a lot. There are so many other things going on in the city. This is just going to add to it. This is what I call the icing on the cake. Mayor Przicki has put a lot of money into the city to kind of revitalize it. And, there's different things going. We're talking about different lights that's going on in the city, different street lights, and that's really important. I don't think we give a lot of thought to how many crimes are, does not take place because we have, amazing street lights, and where there's lights, people are less likely to commit crime. It's just what it is. So we are in the process. We are still in the planning phase, but we pretty much have everything, ready to go. All the organizations are in line to put interventionists in their specific areas of their city. So each organization will be responsible for a different area of the city. And then one organization will kind of be a wraparound program for any individuals who would not fall within the criteria for a high risk interventionist. So we are not just going to worry about the individuals who are out there committing crimes, but we're also going to worry about the grandmother they may live with, or the aunts they may live with, or if the mom needs help or whatever it may be. We're going to also be concerned with them individuals as well. The one thing I always say is that oftentimes, you may have an individual whose grandmother needs their light bill paid, and they may only be 13 or 14 and they can't get a job. So they'll go out and sell drugs to pay their grandmother's light bill. And then that is just a slippery slope. The next thing you know, they're 18 on adult probation and in the system. And if we could have just paid the grandmother's light bill, we may have saved this young man or this young woman years of being in the criminal justice system. So We just really want to put individuals in the community that are familiar with the community, and talk to people and find out what's going on. And the other thing too is we are going to be working with Wilmington PD very closely. But the one thing that's very different about this program than many other programs is the information with Wilmington PD is a one-way street. So Wilmington PD may give us information, they may say, listen, we had a situation at this address. The grandmother is elderly. She's, and she needs oxygen, or she needs her bills paid. She has 2 young grandchildren that are living with her. They're getting in trouble in school. They're causing a lot of problems in the neighborhood. We want to be able to provide them services. One of the other things that's very different with this program than a lot of other programs is the individual does not have to be on probation. They don't have to be receiving, assistance from the state. They don't have to be identified as a high-risk person in the sense that they're being suspended from school and they have their counselors or an IEP. None of that is going to deter us from working with these individuals. So we want to help everyone. If they live in Price's Run and East Side, we will provide services. The other thing too is if an individual is caught in these 2 neighborhoods committing crimes, we will still work with them. We'll still find out what's going on. And why do you insist on coming from Newcastle to East Side to commit crimes? What is going on? What can we do to help you? So the organizations that we're working with are already well-versed in all these areas. Like I said, YAP, they already work with youth who are on probation. Center for Structural Equity has been in this field for years, and they've been doing a lot of work. And Network Connect they do so many different things across the board, with helping, youth, with helping older individuals, with providing different resources in the community. They are amazing. And then WCAC they've been facilitating programs forever and ever and having discussions within the community. So we definitely think they're going to do an excellent job of facilitating the roundtables when we officially get started. So again, we are in the planning phase, but we are moving forward. I know that a lot of people have asked, is the work actually getting done? Are y'all doing anything? Because we're not out there yet, but we are planning and planning and planning. We meet several times a week. And like I have stressed to so many people, this problem didn't happen overnight, so we can't fix it overnight. And we need to make sure that everything is in order before we put individuals in the community, because they need to be safe, because they're going to be talking to people who, have committed serious crimes, who have caused harm to others. And we don't want them to be in any situation that could cause them any harm. So we need to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed before we officially put people in the community to be violence interrupters. But we are definitely headed in the right direction. And the organization that we have contracted with through the city, they continue to stress that we are leaps and bounds above any other city in regards to how fast we've been able to move in jail and get everything headed in the right direction. So we are doing a great job. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I am happy to answer any and all questions. I'm sure I probably left some things out, but I just wanted to give you an overview and then give you an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you so much for that overview. Like I was telling you earlier, I took the opportunity this afternoon to sort of reread the recommendations from the collective and stuff. So I do have some more specific questions. And you talked about the groups being ready to, help everyone and stuff. But one of the things they recommend is really focused using the data to determine who are the highest risk individuals to focus on. How is that playing out? Because I know a few years ago, there was not agreement among the different groups that had the data that would be needed to, share to, identify the highest risk individuals. So how is that happening now?
So we are focused on, individuals between the ages of 13 and 26. That's the group that we have identified as high risk individuals. However, the big difference about this program, this initiative, is that we are not just going to help that group. So for example, if you have a high-risk individual who has been identified in a household, but their cousin also lives there who is 35 and he needs assistance, we are also going to provide them assistance. So that's where Network Connect comes in at. They are the wraparound program. They will provide services to individuals who do not fall within that category. So again, like I said, we don't want to leave anybody out, because we know that individuals who are 28 are committing crimes, and people who are 12 are committing crimes. So that's the population that we have identified as high risk across the board. However, individuals who fall outside of those age groups will still receive services, can still receive services.
So when the collective recommends, that the intervention programming be targeted solely at the data identified victims and perpetrators, you're saying that age is really the only piece of data that's currently being used? We're not using any other data to, identify for the data identified individuals?
So that's the places, the neighborhoods. That's the other data that we used, that most of the crime that's been committed in the area, in the time frame that they looked at, was in Price's Run and East Side. So that's why we are focused on just those two neighborhoods right now. So that's the other data we have used to kind of identify what groups of people we are going to be working with. So, like I said, if the individual is on the West Side, we're not going to, if a crime is committed on the West Side, it's bad. However, this initiative is not going to intervene in crimes committed on the West Side. We're going to intervene in crimes that are committed in the two highest risk neighborhoods in the city of Wilmington right now. Is it possible that this could basically scare people out of these two neighborhoods and go commit crime somewhere else? It's possible. And if that happens, once we get all the data collected that we need to collect on these two areas, if we can expand, we will. But the organization, the collective, has stressed that we need to focus on two areas right now to kind of put all of our resources in one place. So the data that we're depending on is the information they receive from WPD, where most crimes were committed, and then the age that most organizations have identified are the individuals who are committing the highest amount of crimes. So those are the two things that we're focused on right now. I know a lot of organizations, they say, oh, we're going to only deal with men. Some organizations say we're only going to deal with Black men. Some organizations kind of limit it down to gender and race. We're not doing that. We are looking at two neighborhoods, an age group. And again, if there are individuals outside of that age group that need help, they will receive it as well.
Others who have questions?
Does that mean I did a good job in answering all of them?
Please.
Debra, it sounds like your basic focus, your approach is as a referral agency. Is that accurate?
It's not really just going to be a referral agency, because the two organizations, so one organization will be in one neighborhood, the other organization will be in another neighborhood. So they'll be out there, they'll be meeting people, they'll be talking to people. If individuals are referred to us, for example, if somebody says, this address is causing us all kinds of problems, we need you to find out what's going on in that household. Yes, that could be a referral. If Wilmington PD say, you know what, we're having issues with this family, we need you to do something about it. Yes, it will be a referral. However, a lot of it is going to be the individuals who are identified as boots on the ground interventionists, who are going to be talking to people and finding out what's going on directly. So, it's going to be up to them to identify the issues in the community and to say, these are what services they need. So rather than individuals come to the organization to get services, the organization is going to go to the community and find out who needs the services. Because a lot of times, I've been in this world of criminal justice for many, many years. And all too often, individuals come to us and then we determine what they need. We're not doing that. We are going to allow individuals to go into the community and ask the community, what do you need? What needs to happen? Do you need the block cleaned up? Do you need more lights? Do you need trees in your neighborhood? Like, what do you need? Do your kids need, help in school? What's going on? So it's a community violence intervention approach where we are going to go into the community, see what violence is going on, and intervene at a community level versus them, finding out what services are available to them. We're going to bring the services to them.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'm sorry, you mentioned there are two neighborhoods that you're primarily focused on. One is Price's Run. What's the other?
East Side.
Thank you.
And before Roger asks his question, which organization is working in which neighborhood?
So YAP they will be in Price's Run, and CFSE will be on the East Side. And then Network Connect will provide wraparound services to both areas.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Roger?
I know somebody that works in code enforcement, and I just wondered if you're tapped into that source of data as well. In other words, a lot of calls come in about this particular house, this, not having whatever, a lot of complaints, maybe a lot of 911 calls. Are you tapped into that data as well?
I am actually tapped into more data than I want to be tapped into, Roger. So my office is in the city county building, and I believe I have talked to every person on every floor that could provide me some type of information that's going to be of any assistance to me, all the way down to finding out where the vacant houses are in the neighborhoods. So definitely L&I, they know who I am. I believe every person in that building, they have encountered me at some time, and me asking questions and trying to find out what information can I get from you that's going to help us be successful in these two areas. So, and believe me, as a probation officer, I loved L&I because I knew that if a house was a problem, if they received enough phone calls that, it wasn't just going to be us making a ruckus, it was going to be the city making a ruckus as well. So I definitely appreciate everything they do. And I have definitely had a lot of conversations with them. So absolutely, yes.
And what's your source of, you said, the grandmother couldn't pay their light bill. So what's your source of funding for that? If you intervene, do you have the cash to, take care of things like that?
The city has set aside, the city and the city council has put aside a decent amount of money that all the organizations are going to be funded appropriately. And that if we need outside resources, I myself have connected with outside agencies that have already said, listen, if you need a direct line to us, we got you. Whatever you need us to do, we will help. So this is not just the three organizations that are going to be fighting this battle. They're the ones that's going to be on the ground collecting the information. But when we come back together, we are still going to be having regular meetings and discussing things and tapping into resources throughout the city, throughout the state, whatever we can find, we're going to tap into it. So we have so much buy-in for this program. So it is just not the city of Wilmington is willing to provide help. Everybody is on board. So absolutely. We definitely have a lot of resources. So I'm not really concerned about that yet.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Roger's hoping you're leveraging useful data from L&I, how about from water and sewer? When the water department sends someone a note telling them they're going to shut off their water because they haven't kept up with their payments, are you using that data to reach out to those families and say, hey, we know you're struggling because your water's being shut off. How can we help? I mean, are you using that list of people as well?
So what we want to do first and foremost is really get into the communities and build trust, because I know from past experience, if I call somebody and I say, hey, your light bill is about to get cut off, do you want some help? A lot of times their pride and their ego They're not going to say, yeah, I need help. They're not going to do that. So I think the first approach that we want to take and that we are going to take is really getting into the community and developing a level of trust. If we are successful, which I definitely think we will be, that will be our next step, is to really look at other ways to find out who needs the help. Because I know if somebody asked me if I needed help and I didn't know this person, I might not accept their help. So we want to develop good relationships before we go to that level. But again, I'm right there in the city county building. Any access I need to any information, I can freely get it. So if we get to that point, if we get to that bridge, we will cross it. I promise you.
I know I read in.
Debra,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just curious. You talked a little bit about, the activity you're going out to speaking with these individuals, and some of them, are not paying bills or whatever, and then they're out there, potentially selling drugs to make money, to make some payments. What precautions are you taking, or who do you get involved with from a protection standpoint of kind of going out to maybe a home that doesn't necessarily want anybody getting involved in their environment and could be angry and potentially even harmful?
So that's what the training, we went through the 3-day training. We actually have another set of training coming up in August in regards to the same thing, to be identified as public safety professionals. So we are definitely, all the organizations have been trained on how to engage in the community with people who may not want help in the beginning. But the other thing too is that we are choosing individuals who are from the city of Wilmington, who know the city of Wilmington, and who are familiar with a majority of the people in those areas. So we have set up a network that trust is already there. And again, going back to my PO days, I know what it's like to go to somebody's house who doesn't want you there. However, I do know that it all depends on how you engage with that person, and you can get some people to lighten up a little bit, loosen up a little bit, and be willing to talk to you. And the other thing too is it's really, really important about this is that we are not providing information to the police. So the individuals who may be engaged in criminal behaviors do not have to worry about us providing information to the police. We're not concerned about that. We're not concerned about giving the police information and then taking away from the trust that these individuals have built in the community. We want to know, what services do you need that's going to help you stop committing crimes? I've dealt with thousands of individuals who have sold drugs or committed crimes, and not one said, I woke up and said, you know what, I want to be a drug dealer for the rest of my life, or I want to go out and rob people or cause harm to other people. They all have a story, all of them. And I would always ask, what happened to you? What happened to get you to this point? And they would always have a story. So we want to be at the end of the story. We want to be the period at the end of the story. That's what CPSI is. It's going to be the period at the end of the story. So it don't go to a comma and then they go and commit crimes in an effort to address whatever issues happen to them or whatever issues they're dealing with. So I do agree with you. It's not going to be easy work, but the individuals are trained on how to do this. So they're familiar with this city.
No, great. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Those comments and that clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know the press release had said that there were, I think, $150,000 going to each of those organizations. Actually, it also identified GVI, the law enforcement-based program, Group Violence Intervention, as a fourth program that was getting funding. Are they still part of this initiative as well? And can you talk a little bit more about how that funding is used? I mean, on the one hand, $150,000 sounds like a lot in some ways, but if you're really trying to hire and train people and buy new equipment for data because data tracking is part of it and all the training, and you want to get 24/7 programs up and running, that funding doesn't go far. So you can talk more about how that'll get utilized and also if GVI is part of this initiative.
Okay, so 3 answers. So first, GVI is not a part of the initiative. They are going to stay focused on the state as a whole. They are doing a wonderful job dealing with the whole entire state of Delaware. We are going to focus on 2 areas of the city of Wilmington. The other answer in regards to funding, the organizations are being funded very well. The 150 is just kind of a ballpark. However, when the need presents itself, the money will be available to them. That's not a problem. And then the last answer in regards to the data collection, we actually have, we're going to be using Apricot, which is a cloud-based database data collection program, and that was not purchased by the organizations. The city has purchased Apricot. I actually will be I'm the administrator in Apricot. I use Apricot in my previous positions. I'm very familiar with it. It's a wonderful thing. I always say if you put good information in, you'll get great information out. So that's what we're going to be using to collect all of our data. So we are doing a great job. I gotta pat us on the back. I gotta give it to Mayor Przicki. He came up with this, and City Council, everything that has been asked of them, they have done. And they, the one thing I always heard in the past was, programs are funded to fail. This program is not being funded to fail. It's not, and it's not just money is just not being given. It's resources that are being given. It's training that's being given. It's direction. It's, this is what we're going to do. This is the data we're going to collect. This is how we're going to collect it. Everything that you could possibly run up against, we between all the organizations and myself, we have figured out a lot, and we're doing pretty good, I gotta say.
Awesome.
Debra, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've lived here well, I was born here. I haven't lived here all my life, but this is where I was born. I went to PS and I grew up in that area. These areas that you're speaking about have always, that was in the 50s, always been troublesome, always been difficult. Is there much attention paid to the historical, the path of these communities, which hasn't changed for the better for so long? Is there in deciding how to put out fires and intervene, is there attention paid to the whole story of why is it still? I ride through those areas and I think it's worse than it was when I was a teen, when I was a youth, and yet so many efforts have been made to make it better over the years. Do you have a thought about why is it still persisting to be a troublesome place?
Absolutely. So I am a big advocate for addressing trauma across the board. And I think that there is so much ingrained trauma within these communities that need to be addressed.
Yes.
And that's something that we're going to be looking at. And what I've always said, and I'm a professor, I teach about trauma. I taught trauma for the state of Delaware. And I always say what happens in a lot of these communities is that they have turned this trauma into a norm. And it's not a norm. It's not normal. It's not normal that your dad is went to jail. It's not normal that everybody on the block didn't graduate from high school. It's not normal. Like, these things are just not normal. So I think a lot of this initiative is also going to focus on how we are going to provide trauma treatment to the individuals that live in this community. I take a trauma-informed approach to everything I do. Probation, working in prisons, just working with the average individual in the city of Wilmington. I always take a trauma-informed approach. And the organizations that we're working with are also doing that. So one of the things that we will be collecting is data in regards to, happiness and trauma that's taken place, and where did the trauma start, and how can we interrupt it and stop it from going on and on and on. I know the city of Wilmington because I worked in it for so many years. And I know as a probation officer, I worked with generations of the same household. And the trauma was it just repeated itself over and over and over again. And when I was at the Hope Commission, one of the things I did was I taught an 8-part trauma series to individuals who are in the criminal justice system. And trauma is very different for them than the average person. So I think that once we can start helping individuals understand that the things that they're experiencing is not normal, I think that will start to change the way they engage with the community. I know that the city is putting a lot of money into revitalizing different communities. I think that's going to help. So I think there are a ton of different issues that need to be addressed. And I think a lot of it goes down to addressing individuals' traumas and the traumas that are continuing to happen inside of those households. So again, that goes back to building the trust with the individuals in the community and finding out what's going on and what we can do to help. What kind of therapy can we get you into? Do you need mental health services? I've talked to different agencies who are willing to provide those type of services, and they are in the community. So we're taking a completely different approach to addressing the issues. We're not just going to throw money at it. We're not just going to give you a job. We're not just going to pay your rent. We're not just going to put you in a GED class. We're not just going to do any of that. We are going to dig to the bottom, to the root of the problem so that we can resolve it, not just for you, but for every generation after you. So I hope that answered your question, Ms. Susan. I'm not quite sure.
Thank you. Mhm. Thank you.
Roger, you have your hand up?
Yes, you just mentioned jobs, and that was the type of training you were talking about was job training, and then what will be your source of jobs? I mean, we're lucky to have a period of relatively low unemployment, but that's not true for Wilmington. As I understand it, unemployment among Blacks in Wilmington is very high. And there's a lot of reasons for that, of course, but a steady job is a very important way out, a way up. Any hope there that we can, there's a lot of warehouse jobs, even though it's not the best work, but that's what we seem to have offering right now.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of hope in everything. I'm a very hopeful person. I think, every day can be a great day if you just allow it. So, but again, coming from the Hope Commission and, we graduated tons and tons of men, and all of those men who graduated, all graduated with employment. So I know that there are jobs in the city of Wilmington, and I know that having a criminal background is not the excuse. You can get a job. We know that there are jobs, and we all have a plethora of individuals who are willing to hire people who have been identified as, having a criminal background or whatever it may be. So if we determine that that is something that's needed for this household, we have the resources to put them in places to get them the jobs they need and to provide them whatever resources they may need to get to and from that employment. So we definitely, I know for a fact that there are tons and tons of organizations in the city of Wilmington, agencies, companies. I have walked the streets of Wilmington, and we went and knocked on different doors of different companies and said, would you hire somebody that has a criminal background if we can guarantee this, this, and this? And absolutely. Absolutely. And then, a lot of people don't know about bonding that is provided for free from the Department of Labor. So again, I think a lot of it just comes down to having all the knowledge and the resources, arm's length away, and being able to tap into those and make companies feel comfortable hiring an individual who may be identified as a high-risk person.
Thank you.
Norm? You're still muted, Norm.
It was mentioned earlier that a lot of these people did not graduate from high school. What is the dropout rate?
In the city of Wilmington?
Yeah,
Sir, I wouldn't even be able to tell you that answer. I don't know. I know I have seen it a million times, and I'm not even going to lie to you and say that I know it. I don't. I I have no idea. But you know what, Norm, Mr. Norm, I can Google it right now and give you an answer if you would like. But I
so,
don't have it readily on hand. I don't know the dropout rate.
I mean, I know there were some reports from a number of years ago that looked at it, did surveying to actually look at it at the neighborhood level, which you can learn even more from than just the general, school district wide or even citywide. And I know there were some neighborhoods, and Southbridge stood out in my mind as one that had an incredibly, shockingly high dropout rate. On the order of 80%. I mean, don't quote me on that, but it was something like way, way up there like that at the neighborhood level, which was really shocking.
So we have the Center for Structural Equity. They have, contacts with different schools in these areas. They work directly with them. Wolfie would have those stats readily available. I know he would. The one thing that I have looked a lot at, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I looked at the suspension rates, because I don't want to get to the dropout rate. I want to look at the suspension rate. And if we can lower the suspension rate, we're going to lower the dropout rate. So that has been my main focus, is looking at what schools have the highest suspension rates, and what age group and what ethnicity, what all that other information. That's one of the things that I have focused a lot on, and that CFSC, they also look at what kids are being suspended and what can we do to get you back into school, and what other alternatives are there to suspension. So I think that's another thing that the Department of Education, we need to start looking at, what other alternatives do we have to suspension. So.
well, when I was a school counselor, in the 70s, I read each dropout cost the American public $200,000. That's what the price was back then. You could just imagine what it is now. And so I committed myself to try, and I had over 300 students I was paying attention to, and I was trying to keep the number of dropouts a year in my group of kids in single digits. It's hard work, but I did it.
It is. Bless your heart, because I don't know if I could work in high school. I'd work in a prison first. So.
Well, where I worked, you'd find it a very pleasant place to be. I don't know if it's like that anymore.
Sheridan? And you're muted. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm sitting in my car in a parking. But anyhow, what I wanted to say is that I didn't get the first part of your lecture because I was running, and I just finally pulled over into a park so I could sit and listen to the rest of it. But as a social worker, as a retired social worker, what I know from the literature is that you can't just look at the children who are having and I'm glad that you're looking at the suspension rate, because I've done some publications in looking at suspension rates for children, and they're very high and punitive. But we have to look at living wage jobs. We need housing, we need living wage jobs. If you can get housing and living wage jobs into those communities, then the children will see their parents. First of all, there'll be resources for them. They'll be watching their parents go to work. They'll be seeing that there's enough food on the table. They'll be seeing there's, we're not paying rent. And they want to do that. They want to emulate that because, and we've seen enough literature that want to decrease the violence, to increase jobs and resources for the community. So that's what I want to say. I don't know what you have found in your literature.
You were breaking up a little bit, so you may want to try turning your video off just to increase the bandwidth for your voice. But hopefully, Dr. Mason, you were able to catch most of what she was asking.
I did. I definitely, the jobs and housing is something that has been an issue in every community. I know that I recently did a tour of every county and talked to individuals who are dealing with different types of behavioral health issues. And the biggest thing they said was housing, 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 housing. So I do know that the Housing Authority has actually in the last few years changed some of the rules on individuals who can live in different types of housing developments or Section 8 or low income housing, where, you know, even if they have a criminal background, you know, some of them will accept individuals to live with family members. So that is definitely something that has changed. And I know that different low income developments are being built right now in the city of Wilmington. So that's another thing that is being done to help with the housing issues. And again, the jobs are there. We just have to help individuals keep the jobs. We can get people jobs. But again, what this comes back to, and I've said this for years and years and years, is that we have to address the individual's trauma in order for them to maintain that job and for them to maintain their house. An individual can get a job. You can hire somebody. But what I've seen in all my years is that an individual will come into me and say, you know what, I quit my job. And I'm like, why did you quit your job? You don't have another job to go to. Well, my supervisor got smart with me. Okay, that's not a reason to quit, but tell me why you quit. So, and again, that all goes back to the level of trauma that the individual has experienced to be able to deal with confrontation, to be able to deal with stress. What are they dealing with outside of the job? And they're bringing it in there. So that's the other issue that we really want to look at, is the level of trauma within these households and why individuals are unable to maintain their jobs. And then the housing. I always say, if you can't maintain your job, you're not going to maintain your housing. And we need to understand, you know, why individuals are not able to budget. You know, these things that we all take for granted. A lot of individuals who are living in this world of criminal justice, as I would say, they don't have the basic skills that we have. They don't know how to budget. They don't know how to deal with confrontation. They don't know how to effectively deal with stress. And a lot of that goes back to the things they experienced as a child or things they continue to experience in their neighborhood. You know, if you go outside in the morning and you see a dead body, that's going to impact you. It's going to impact you. So I think we really need to look at the city as a whole and all the issues as a whole in order to help individuals get access to employment and housing, and then give them the resources and the knowledge and the skills to maintain that housing and those jobs. So I've had a lot of jobs in my life, and I've always experienced something that was unpleasant, but I knew I couldn't quit my job. So, but some people don't have that. So anything else? Any other questions? I think we lost our host.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about emotional intelligence. This is Sheridan Kingsbury. Are you using any emotional intelligence with your clients?
Well, the organizations, they definitely are familiar with different things like that. We are doing a self-sufficiency matrix. We will have individuals complete that to kind of find out what's going on, what areas do they have concerns with, what do they need help with. But again, the emotional intelligence is tied to their trauma. So I think that it's definitely something that we're going to look at. And again, these organizations have dealt with individuals in these communities for years and years and years. So, you know, it's not, I think they're pretty good at what they do. So, you know, we're really blessed to have 3 organizations working with us that have agreed to work with us that already are doing a great job of what they're doing. So.
Deborah, could you put your contact email in the chat?
Absolutely. Let me
Thank you.
do that right now. Yes.
Is the meeting still going on?
It is.
Sorry, I completely lost internet service on my computer, so I'm back on my phone. I was hoping the whole meeting didn't fall apart.
No, it put me as the host, so I felt special for like 5 seconds.
Very good.
We were planning a coup, but we couldn't get it organized.
Oh, man, that would have been great. If there's any other questions, please, I hope I'm answering them. You know, I know there's a lot of things that we still need to do. I know there's a lot of growth that we still need to work on. But I think in a little bit of time that we've been at this, we've only been really at it since January, and we have made a lot of progress in these last few months. So we have a lot of amazing people at the table. I think that's the key. That's the biggest key.
Well, congratulations on all that you have accomplished and are getting going. I know we're all very excited that this type of programming is getting going in the city. I guess one final question, besides inviting you in to get updates like this, are there any plans for, doing reports out to the community on a quarterly or some kind of basis to just give general updates?
There will be, and those will come at the roundtable. So every month at the roundtable, everyone will be tasked with giving out a report on what they've done, what they're going to do. That includes the police. Everyone will be tasked with giving out a report at the meeting. So everybody will be invited. It's not a closed meeting, and the reports will come monthly. So I seen over here the gang violence. One of the biggest issues with gang violence is being addressed through the great GVI. So they are doing a wonderful, wonderful job at addressing the gang violence across the city. So they're focused on gang violence. If we encounter it, we're going to address it. We're going to deal with it. We're going to handle it. But the big lift of gang violence falls on the shoulders of GVI, and they're doing a great job, actually. And they're very well funded, so that helps as well. Yeah. So.
Any other final questions before we close this out?
Thank you, Sally. I need all the good words I can get.
Thank you. It's been very, very interesting.
It has.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
Yeah.
inspiring.
Thanks for sharing your thing with us.
Absolutely. This is not a job for me, guys. This is my life's work. I promise you. I am invested. So if this don't work, I don't know what else we got, because this is good. This is good stuff. So, let's all keep our fingers and our toes crossed that everything goes according to plan. So yes, and pray hard.
Best wishes.
Yes. So
Look
thank
forward
you
to
so
having you back
much.
again.
Yes, please.
Thanks
If you
very
have any
much.
questions or anything, reach out to me. My email is in the chat. I have no problem. I will respond.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good day,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Good
so
night.
much.
Bye.
Good night.